Hello everyone and welcome to the final stream of the SuperCoach season. We are at round 25. I feel like the time has absolutely flown by, but we've managed to get here. Congrats to anyone who won their head-to-head leagues, or if you've managed to get to an overall rank that you're happy with. Any overall players, obviously you probably still got one more week. Maybe you can try to push for some extra ground. That's what I'm doing, trying to go for the final push for top 1,000. I don't think I'm going to quite get there, but we'll dream. A man can dream. Literally, a man can dream. So thanks everyone for joining in the live stream and the chat. It was a bit last minute. I decided I wasn't sure if I was doing it at 8:30, but I thought I'll just get it done a little bit earlier at 7 o'clock. So hopefully, if you're enjoying your dinner, maybe you can tune in to the stream as well. It'll probably be a little bit more chilled out. I think it's last week of the season. Most people probably don't have trades anyway. And a bunch of players getting rested too. So, which is exactly what Incentia says in the chat here. Says, let's get started so I can whinge about the fraud that is Ivan Cleary. Yeah, probably the biggest talking point out of this week's Teamless Tuesday is that obviously the Panthers have rested basically their entire first grade team. Wasn't unexpected. It was kind of talks of this coming into the week, so I should say, sorry. And yeah, basically I think 13 of last week, 17 are completely rested. So no surprises there. Hopefully I haven't loaded up on too many Panthers and you can cover that, if you've got no trades. I'll show my team at some point during the stream as well. I do need to trade out. I have one trade left, so I do have a trade to try to use, and I do need to make it in my center wing, so it actually works out that I've got that trade with Ivan Cleary resting all of his Panthers players. But otherwise, to be honest, there's not actually that much carnage, because we'll get into a section later in terms of the ladder, motivations of teams, which teams are actually playing for something. A lot of the teams in the top 8 are still playing for vital spots, so a lot of the big teams have played their guys. So for SuperCoach, we actually haven't been that impacted apart from the Panthers. Incentive is starting to feel like the Manly Seagulls. Seagulls or Sea Eagles, isn't it? Scraping the bottom of the barrel with Joe Fafita and Pole, along with Andrew Fafita as the available player as emergency. Yeah, you are. That is scraping the bottom of the barrel in terms of player depth. You might see a few other teams like that, but hopefully any other players out there, not Incentia by the sounds of it, have built up a bit of depth in their team. Jason says, thank you so much for the season, man. Didn't do as well as my previous seasons, but I've watched every single video this year and you've been a big help. Thank you. Mate, that really, really is very kind of you. I really appreciate that. I always like to think if my viewers and followers are doing better than me, I'm okay with that. And if they're getting value out of it, then that's the biggest contribution I think I can make. So I'm very happy with that. So thank you so much, Jason. Gazarak says, where did the stream come from? Yeah, it was a little bit last minute. So apologies for that. Tyler says goal was top 5k, sitting at 3,900, which is great. So that's, you've met the goal. Barring any major slips, you probably are going to stay in top 5k. So congrats on that. That fat guy says, hey man, thanks for all your help this year. No worries. Really, really appreciate it. Sorry if I can't quite get this pronunciation correct. Guangu Suarez Moreno says, Aman, is that a haircut? If so, I love it. That's right. I did get a haircut today. I badly needed one, so I got one done today. So in terms of where I'm sitting at the moment, coming into this last week, I've got one trade. Didn't get as much ground as I would have hoped for last week, so I only went up by like 82 spots, and I'm 143 off the top 1,000, which is like 143 points in 1 week is a lot. So I'm kind of doubting if I'll get there, but look, I think now my goal is basically green arrow, because I just want to end up at the highest rank. I feel like it's a nice psychologically finishing the season at your highest rank instead of like starting high and slipping. I've just been gradually climbing. So I'm hoping that, last round of the season, I hit my highest rank. That's pretty nice. And, if I'm top 1,500, I'll take that. I'm very happy with that. If someone said, you'll be top 1,500 beginning of the season, I'd say, yeah, I'll take that. Benny says, good evening, you beautiful Shakespearean supercoacher. Thank you so much, Benny, for joining in. I know you haven't had any trades for a while, but I think your team's still doing okay. So welcome. Cassidy says, first you're doing NRL SC and currently 619 off the back of mostly you. Now, mate, I won't be taking all of that credit there. That's, I made a lot of wrong decisions this season. I probably won't have time to do a review stream next week. I'm actually going to be overseas next week, and it's going to actually affect me this weekend because I'm leaving on Saturday morning, and so I don't actually think I'll be able to catch any late team news. So yeah, we'll see how we go. But no, look, congrats on that awesome ranking. So yeah, for me, it's basically just finish as high as I can. Maybe one last shout out to our group league. So I know Alex is sitting in the top 10 at overall rank of 8. And Lachlan from Tamworth Tigers had the biggest score of last week's round with 1,396. So yeah, congrats to all of you in the top 10 in our group league, all sitting within top 140, especially to Toby and Alex sitting in the top 20. That's really exceptional ranks to be at. And Alex, if you're sitting in the top 10 come end of season, you're looking at a sweet tracksuit there. And yeah, final shout out to members. So a few of them are already in this chat here with Gazaraki, Tyler, and that fat guy. Yeah, really want to give a particular shout out to these guys just for showing some support to the channel. I'll try to figure out how to make sure that while we're kind of in the off season, I don't charge you guys money, because I feel like that's not fair while I'm producing any content. So I'll try to figure out how to fix that up. But yeah, it was really fun to kind of start this off the season and have some little silly emojis that we could use in the live streams. So I thought we'll quickly maybe just have a quick recap looking at the ladder as it stands. Just having an idea of like what are the teams actually playing for and who's got motivation and things like that. So basically Panthers don't have any motivation this week, hence why they've rested all their players. So really positions number 2 till number 9, they all have something to play for in terms of either if it's a home final or if it's a place in the top 8. Say for example the Broncos and the the Broncos and the Raiders. It looks like the Raiders are probably going to get it based on the matchups, versus the Tigers this week, and got a pretty good points difference gap now on the Broncos. So, yeah, unfortunate slip for the Broncos. They actually started the season so well. But I think what it basically comes down to, I think you're probably not going to get... it's kind of evident in the team list, right, that a lot of these big teams still named all of their key players. But I think the nuance for this particular weekend is probably going to be extra important with your teams to set it up in terms of, put your... guys who are playing early in the round in your starting team and guys who are playing later in the week in your reserves. Because what you're going to find here is, I can't quite remember the actual schedule, but you're going to have teams see the results of games before that, and that might decide how they actually decide to play those particular matchups. So for example, the first game of the week is the Eels Storm. Now there's a lot riding on that game in terms of, if the Eels win that game, they'll go ahead of the Storm and likely in 4th. And so that is obviously getting into the top 4 means that I believe the rule is that they will, if they lose in the first week, if they win, they get a week off. Correct me if I'm wrong, I can't quite 100% remember, but look, there's a benefit to being in the top 4 is all I'll say. So if that happens, then that probably means, actually, to be honest, it doesn't really have that much of a flow and impact for the other games. Probably one would be, say, the Roosters, even Roosters Rabbitohs, to be honest, though, because... I should say it. If we see Eels Storm, and let's say the Storm win, so the Eels lose, then the Roosters and Rabbitohs, whoever wins that game, if I look at the points differential, so they both have better points differential than the Eels. So if the Eels lose, and then you have the Roosters or the Rabbitohs win, what you're going to find is that they'll kind of jump into the 5th spot. And so that means in the first week of the finals, I believe they'll play whoever comes 8th, which is probably a better matchup to have. So there's obviously going to be some motivations there. If you see, for example, maybe the Eels win, and there's no way that the Rabbitohs and Roosters can change positions apart from each other, maybe that changes how players get rested and things, but I don't really see it that much, but that's something to think about. Probably the biggest game that I thought would be the Sharks game. So let's say the Sharks play on Sunday 2 p.m, and so they'll know the result of the Cowboys-Panthers game on Saturday evening. And so most people are probably thinking the Cowboys might win just because they're playing at home and Panthers have rested all of their key guys essentially. So if the Cowboys win that game, there's motivation for the Sharks to also win to be able to get top 2. If, for example, the Cowboys lose, then you might see the Sharks kind of rest some of their guys maybe in the last minute. You'd have to have a double check of like extended reserves and things, but just to make sure that, if, for example, there's like a halfback sitting on the extended reserve for the Sharks, that might suggest potentially Hines could maybe get a late resting if they see the Cowboys have lost, and then the Sharks are pretty comfortable in 2nd spot. So I'm actually just looking at their extended reserves. They don't actually have really anyone, I think, who can come in for that position, but these are just some like potential scenarios that you might see for this week, which is why I think it's just important to be able to set up your team so that if you can, be flexible. And this is where I'm going to struggle, because 9:30 in the morning on Saturday, I'm flying for like 14 hours, so I'm going to miss all of the Saturday results, and so I won't be able to manage my team while I'm airborne. So we'll see how that goes for this week. But that's just something I think that's important to keep in mind for this round. That it's important, I think, how you set up your team, just because teams will see previous results, and that might influence how they then, even just their own motivation to like win the game as badly. They might take their foot off the gas, for example, if they know that they're not going to move their position. So that's just something I think to keep in mind. Same again with the Raiders. If you have any Raiders players, potentially, if they see the Broncos lose, that all but assures Raiders of top 8. And so maybe they have a weakened performance against the Tigers. And maybe that's even like, if you're really pod chasing, maybe you think, okay, we don't think the Raiders are going to come out as strongly as we think. Maybe then I can take a chance on like a Dewey captain. That's the kind of things I think that would probably separate you in this week. I know most people don't have head-to-heads, but if you're like overall chasing and you're really trying to go a little bit different, that's maybe a couple of things I think. So it's a bit of a strategy, I think, just for this last week. Just looking at kind of team motivations and looking at the results and what that means for teams and how they're thinking about approaching their game based on previous results. So I won't really speak too much more about that, but that's just something I think that's worthwhile to keep in mind. Unfortunately, I don't think I'll be able to do much manipulating of this situation because I won't have an internet connection or be able to look at results and see what's going on. So probably, at least this is more of a personal thing, but anyone who does have a trade, I can see Hwangi, I think you asked as well. I asked on Twitter, but what's a good pod for this week and pod captain to get extra points? So I think ideally you probably just want to look at who's got the best matchup for this week. And so, the best matchups are anyone who versus the Knights, the Tigers, the Warriors, probably the Dragons as well. The only thing I'll say with the Warriors is that it looks like a good matchup to score points, but they are playing at home. And so I do feel like, last week of the season at home, the Warriors have had much better performances playing at Mount Smart Stadium, which is, fair enough. So anyone looking at maybe, say, Titans players, like I know AJ Brimson has been really good the last few weeks, maybe like a Beau Fermor. I like them as pods, but I don't think they're actually the best pods just because of they're playing away from home. I feel like Sharks are probably the best bet in terms of, they've got good matchups. They've got a good matchup and they probably will have still some motivation because I expect the Cowboys to win. So your likes of your Ikuvalus, your Ramians, good center wing pods. Like for me, myself, I'm actually looking for a center wing pod. I'll get to my team a little bit later, but I basically can afford any center wing in the game. Cowboys is another one, as Sam says in the chat there too. So obviously the matchup on paper looks tough with the Panthers, but Cowboys have got motivation to win because they want to finish top 2 and they're playing a weakened Panthers outfit at home. So it's probably a good matchup to target as well. So ignore the stats about Panthers being a good defense. I'm sure the Panthers won't get, it won't be a blowout, but you'd probably think maybe the Cowboys score, let's say 26-30 maybe. So you guys like Val Holmes, maybe Scott Drinkwater, Murray Talangi, there's a few pods there as well. And I probably do prefer Cowboys players over the Titans ones, just because of the pedigree of the team compared to, say, the Titans. Other good places, probably the Raiders. Only thing is obviously playing last game of the week. We spoke about it a little bit before. If we see the Broncos lose and the Raiders look to be all locked up in the top 8, they might not go out as hard as, say, because last week, for example, they had a real good game against Manly, and you could see that evidently because they knew that they were playing for that position in the top 8. So that's just something to keep in mind with Raiders. I think I mentioned Rapana very, very off the cuff last week, and he goes out and scores 120. But Hudson Young scored a ton as well. So I don't think he's a bad pod either in your center wing. But for center wing, I'm at the moment leaning towards Cowboys or Sharks. So like Hwangi, again, sorry, apologies if I've mispronounced your name. Depends on obviously the position because you can go for pods in any position obviously this week. So yeah, really kind of comes down to the position. I'm looking particularly at center wings this week just for my own team. So that's what I've been thinking about more. So like Beau Fermor maybe. A couple of people also did mention the Bulldogs because, Manly just kind of looked down and out. It's a home game, I believe, for the Bulldogs as well. So they might want to have a good game just to kind of round out their season, which you'd probably say is, given the start, probably a success. The way that they kind of bounced back from a pretty poor beginning of the year. So a home game on Friday evening to Manly could be a game where maybe you look to like a Karaz. If you've got a 5'8" slot, maybe a Matt Burton. I don't mind that either as a pod. And he's probably someone that you maybe could look to captain just because he got goal kicking. So he's got that upside. It does feel a little bit risky in the sense that, Manly is still not a bad team. They're just not playing well though. So yeah, I don't mind that. And And yeah, someone mentioned, Sam says, sneaky pod in Greg Marzu from the Titans. He's got a really Supercoach friendly game. I'm just going to double check if he did get named. I'm sure people wouldn't have mentioned him if he wasn't named, but I'll just double check that. Yeah, he's got a very Supercoach friendly game with a tackle busting ability. Yeah, he's been named on the wing. I can't even remember what he scored last week, if he even played last week. But yeah, he could be someone to look to for a pod. I feel like obviously this is a week where you have zero downside because you're only having them for 1 week. Yeah, he scored 82 last week with a double. So yeah, he's got the game against the Warriors. But I'm personally thinking maybe Cowboys or Sharks players. So for example, Tyler says, how did Ikuvalu go last week? He didn't play. He got ruled out late last week. But yeah, he's playing this week. And in the week before, I'm pretty sure he scored a double. Yeah, he scored a double for 100 points. So look, he could be a decent pod. And if you look at that table below me, Knights do concede the most. They're up there in terms of conceding the most 100-plus point games, Supercoach wise, only behind the Warriors. But I just think Warriors at home, I think, will put up a better performance than, say, the Knights at home. So I prefer targeting the Knights fixture compared to, say, the Warriors game. So, and Sharks obviously better team than the Titans, so I do like Sharks. So I think, yeah, Cowboys or Sharks is what I'm looking at for my centering pods this week. I'll quickly just go back to the chat. So Sam says, started the year at 78k, now sitting 208th, which is awesome. Congrats on that. That's an awesome turnaround and obviously a really good spot to be in. Sam, Jeff says, this has been my first year and I've won my mate's league thanks to you. Well, that's awesome. Congrats on that, and I really, really appreciate that. Appreciate you, and it's made it even more fun playing each week, watching your streams. Cheers. Jeff, thank you so much. Really, really appreciate that. That's very, very kind of you. Mark says, hi, Man. Thank you for all your videos this year. Have a great off season. Already looking forward to next season. Yep. Thank you so much again, Mark, for your support as well. So yeah, I think in terms of, it'll probably be a case of, I won't likely be doing content for a couple of months. Maybe if the World Cup has a fantasy game, maybe we'll dive into it, but you guys might know I'm pretty into my fantasy Premier League, so I'm doing a podcast with a Whisperer for that, so I'll be pretty in depth with that one. So I might just take a break from rugby league fantasy. Who knows? So yeah, look, I won't be able to do a review stream next week. Maybe the week after if there's interest for it. But yeah, look, it will otherwise be a break. But look, we'll be back for next season. No doubting that one. So yeah, few centering pods there to consider. I'm just thinking if there's anyone I missed. Oh, sorry, yeah. There's one guy I want to give a particular shout out to. So Matthew Bruma23 is a big fan of the channel as well. Really appreciate him, and he's got really great insights as well on Twitter. Now he's thrown out a real left field one, which is Marcelo Montoya from the Warriors. He's banking it for 2 tries for 100 plus, and he said the past 6 rounds, left edge attackers versus the Titans have scored 1, 3, 2, 3, 4, 3 tries, and then also Edgercle's 5 tries before that. So that's definitely a target of a weak defense for the Titans is their right edge defense. So maybe you go with the left winger from the Warriors, which could be Montoya. So I've got his name there because Brumer mentioned that. I thought that's some great stats, so I thought I'd drop it in there. But yeah, could be someone to go for. I personally don't think I'd go there. Just it's a home game, maybe, but yeah, he could be a shout. But I think I still prefer Cowboys or Sharks options. In terms of captains, I'll go straight to captains because to be honest, I haven't really got anything else planned. I think what I'll just do more this stream, we'll keep it fairly chill. I'll go through my team, just answer some general Q&A, but I just obviously don't think there's as much to discuss this week. Not even sit starts, to be honest, because most people are probably lacking a bit of players just due to some restings from Penrith. So, to be honest, I haven't really shown any pod captains here. I think some of the more obvious ones, probably Nico Hines, if he does play against the Knights, it looks like the safe captain. He scored 66 last week when he didn't do much. If you are looking for a bit of a flyer, I realize how messy that looks. Let me fix that up. Maybe your Cowboys players at home to Penrith. So I don't mind that. Yeah, you can see I've got the averages wrong there. So let me just I'll fix that up in 1 second. You can see how prepared I was coming into this. So yeah, Val Holmes is 66. Drinky is pretty. What is Drinkwater's average? 70. What a man, 70 average, pretty good. Anyway, that's some edits on the fly there. Yeah, so I think your safe one's Hines. Your pods, yeah, you're probably looking at maybe a Fafita. I still don't think I want I don't think I can recommend Fafita as a captain shout. Just with, it happened last week, he got taken off. I believe it was something due to like a finger injury. But just playing away from home, I don't think I can trust Fafita to give me a safe like 70, 80 plus. So I'd still rather go with like a Hines. Prefer the Holmes Drinkwater route compared to say like a Fafita. Brimson maybe I've got here as a bit of a pod. I trust him more than Fafita for sure, just due to what he's done recently. He's always very involved in the attack, so I think if the Titans are to score points, it's likely going to come through him. So I prefer him. Also as like goes without saying, he's probably a good buy this week too. But I'm thinking more and more about that away fixture for Warriors not being as great on paper. For someone like a Brimson, they played at home last week from memory, so obviously that works a lot more in their favour. Now, Cherry Evans, Oliver Wendt has just mentioned Cherry Evans. I couldn't bring myself to put Manly players on this for captaincy like Cherry Evans. Just from what I've seen, I felt like it's obviously the fixture is good, Bulldogs, but I just think based on their form, I can't be confident captaining someone like Cherry Evans. I know he's got upside. I'd rather just be happy if he gets 100 plus, but not, stress too much about the risk of him going like 35, 40, and even Olakwatu to that effect as well. So personally, I don't love Cherry Evans as a shout. It's obviously it's a shout, but just based on what I'm seeing from Manly and the way they got smashed last week as well by the Raiders. Bulldogs, I think, playing at home, I don't think they're going to be like a particularly easy game as well. So again, not loving Cherry Evans as an option. I've kind of avoided looking at the Storm Eels game. I feel like that's going to be a pretty tight affair. It's hard to kind of call that one. Even Roosters Rabbitohs, I've got Teddy and Latrell here. Just on Latrell, incentives mentioned, hearing Latrell might be rested. There's been a couple of conflicting reports on Latrell this week, but from what I've heard from more reputable journalists and also from Cam Murray, he basically said that his assumption is that Latrell is going to be played this week. I think he's just apparently up in Tyree, just having a bit of a rest, but from what I can assume, I think he's going to play this week. I would be surprised if he doesn't play as well. Like, against the Roosters, his old club, the teams have got something to play for. Just the occasion, first game at the new stadium, all that kind of stuff. I find it hard to believe that the Troll will get rested. So obviously you keep an eye on it, but they do play fairly early in the week. They're the third game of the round. So hopefully it doesn't mess up your team too much. But my feeling is the Troll is probably going to play. Other pod captain shouts. Dewey, I think, is a better option than someone like Cherry Evans. I think despite the Raiders obviously being a good opponent, if... Like, for example, let's say you've got the captain on Hines, and then on Saturday at 5:30 you find out that the Broncos lose, so Raiders are locked into top 8. If you want to chase that potential pod, go for someone like a Dewey because you think maybe, Raiders are obviously locked in, so they might not put tools down, but they might just not put their best foot forward. Maybe look to Dewey captain because he can obviously get it done in tougher fixtures. And obviously, if you see the Cowboys win Saturday 7:30, then I think I'd probably stick it on Hines because the Sharks do have something to play for, and the chances of Hines playing is going to go up even more. So I think with captaincy this week, you can kind of play it by the round. At the moment, I'm pretty sure my captain's armband is still on Hines at the moment, and I think I've got my vice captain on Teddy at the moment, just with the home game. But I haven't put too much thought into vice captain at the moment. But for me, captain is still on Nico Hines. So to be honest, I haven't really got too much more to discuss for this week. I think it was mainly just wanted to talk around potential pods for the 1 week play. Just kind of getting a bit of a strategy chat around ordering your players and potential motivations of teams, and then a bit of discussion about captaincy. But trade targets, I think it's hard to kind of go into anything in full detail. Hwangi says, sorry, I made a YouTube channel to ask you questions and couldn't change the name. I love watching you so sad it's coming to an end. Mate, I really appreciate that, and I appreciate the commitment as well to make the YouTube channel just to ask me questions. So really do appreciate that as well. Mitchell says, Aman, you're a legend. Thanks for the help this year. As a first timer, you really helped me. Cheers. Mate, Mitchell, congratulations on a good first year, and thank you so much as well, and especially for your support as well as a member. Dale says, fell out in the first round for my classic team, but in finals this week. Okay, yeah, because I think you can set up your league to still have head-to-head league finals this round. So he says, who are you sitting out of Marzu, Jojo, Meaney, or Moylan? To be honest, probably Nick Meaney. And it's just with the matchup. Eels have been playing pretty good now recently, and I think they're going to try to kind of keep that form going, and they do seem to have a pretty good matchup with the Storm. So like Meany scored 61 last week. So like, yeah, Meany's probably like maybe a 60, probably around that score, just because of obviously the fact that he's goal kicking. What did Jojo Fafita score last week? He scored 46. He probably does, 46 without a try is actually very, very good. A base of 38 against the Warriors. I'd probably run out Fafita. Probably would run out Marzu as well, just with the matchup. And then, yeah, probably more than, again, a matchup play there too. So I probably would drop Meany out of that. Mitchell says fourth reserve is either Fanua Pole or Josh King. Yeah, again, that's probably someone I didn't talk about, Ezra Mann. So he's been he's not playing this week. Tyson Gamble's playing at 5'8", so that's probably going to hit a few people's depth as well this week. So yeah, tough one. Josh King or Pole, they're kind of the same, aren't they? I mean, Josh King, I'm pretty sure has been getting benched the last few weeks, and yeah, he only played 14 minutes last week for 12 points. 39 the week before. I think Pole is probably more likely to get just more minutes than that. Yeah, he played 43 minutes last week. So I think for me, just on minutes, I'd probably say Pole over Josh King. Brian Toto rested, him and along with everyone else from the Panthers team. Last reserve is Tamalolo, Adam Elliott, or Olakau'atu. Now that's a tough one. I'm still kind of battling this with myself. I would have normally said Olakau'atu, but just he's been very poor as well recently, just with the whole, if you want to call it, Jersey Gate. Ever since that, just hasn't been as good. So I wouldn't mind sitting Olakau'atu for like an Adam Elliott. Adam Elliott's got the matchup on paper. So I'd probably say Lolo or Elliott. I know it's a bit difficult because they play very different times in the week. I'd probably say Adam Elliott. I think he's got probably the biggest ceiling out of those three guys, just in terms of the matchup. Whereas Tamalolo, I think, has been a little bit quieter in terms of his scoring recently. I'm just having a look at some of his previous scores. Yeah, so he scored 48 last week, and that's even playing in 61 minutes. So I feel like Adam Elliott can probably match that, plus can even do better than that. I guess Tamalolo hasn't scored a try yet this season. I wonder it could happen this week, but yeah, I'm thinking probably Adam Elliott. Dale says, in our draft final this week, who are you resting out of more than Meany? We already answered that question. I'd say probably rest Nick Meany. Okay, I'll probably just get to my team. So I'll quickly maybe just have a talk through what I'm thinking. Literally, what I need to do this week is deal with my centers, because obviously I can't play one of Anderson, Taylor May, or Isaac Dongo, and Ruben Garrick is injured. So I'll take him out this week. And so I can buy any center wing. I have no duels to work around, so it has to be a center wing eligible player for a 1 week play. So they'll play in my center wing. So, I mean, Beau Fermor has looked decent, but I'm thinking maybe like Val Holmes. I'm going to have more of a think about it. I think I want to go for as pot of a player if I could. So if it's not Val Holmes, I think the way I'm ranking in my head is probably Val number 1. Just behind him is probably Ikuvalu number 2, just to get a piece of the Sharks. The best he's got a better matchup, you'd say, with Newcastle as well. And 0.6% ownership is definitely a pod. Whereas Val Holmes, he's quite highly owned, so I feel like I'm not gaining a lot there. He probably would match Ikuvalu, but yeah, I'm thinking maybe Ikuvalu for this week for my team. And that would be it. And like, I'd play Grant. I might not play Olakau'atu. I might play McInnes instead, just because McInnes starting again this week, so I'm feeling that's probably a better matchup. But yeah, for me, Ruben Garrick will be out, and I'll get in a center wing. At the moment, I'm thinking Holmes, Ikuvalu, maybe Beau Fermor. Not really sure where else I could go. Maybe Lomax against the Broncos, but don't think I'm going to go there. That's maybe Jesse Ramian, but I do prefer the winger in Ikuvalu. So yeah, that's where my head's at the moment. Probably not much more, I think, to be discussing for this week. I think we've answered the majority of questions. Maybe all I'll say, I'll post this announcement on Twitter as well. So, given we are coming to the last week of the season, I thought it'd be good just to, I'll probably maybe reveal my little project that I've been working on. So I'll post it on Twitter, but essentially what I have been doing is, obviously you guys know I make very, very silly poems and things like that. So I've actually compiled all the poems from this season. I've made it look a little bit prettier, put pictures and things like that. And I've compiled it into a bit of an ebook. And so the idea is, what I'll do is when the round begins, so maybe say Thursday evening or Friday, I'll post a link for people to be able to make a donation to actually purchase like that downloadable ebook. It's literally just a compilation of all the poems. I'll post maybe a couple of screenshots of what it looks like on Twitter, but essentially it's a compilation of all the poems that I've either said on stream or I've written on Twitter into a little ebook as a bit of a memoir, I guess, for the season. So it's a bit of a gimmicky thing, but we're gonna people can pay for it what they like, or I might just set a price, and all the proceeds will go to Beyond Blue for mental health charity. I was umming and ahhing for a while about which charity I wanted to give it to, but that Paul Green event really did hit me pretty hard, and so I think it made it pretty clear in my head that I think I'd donate it to a mental health charity. Obviously we have a great community here. I'm seeing such lovely comments from you guys as well, and I think it's really positive, and I think any way that people can help make donations and in return get a little fun memoir of the season in the form of my silly poems, I thought that might be a fun thing to do as well. So I think, I thought it'd be a really cool thing to do. I'll post a link for that on Twitter with further details and stuff, but that's what I've been, I guess, if you want to call it, working on in the last few weeks as well. So I'll post something for that on Twitter. But if people want to get behind that as well, really, really do appreciate it. It's for a good cause. We're going to raise the funds and donate it for a worthwhile issue. And hopefully a nice way to cap off the season, because I know the game can give you ups and downs, but at the end of the day, it's a game that we all enjoy. And so hopefully with the community, we can, raise some funds, and I might leave it open for, say, like maybe maybe for the duration of the whole finals, and say come the end of the grand final, whatever we've made in that period of time, we'll donate it at the end of the season. So that's something I'll post some more details about on Twitter, but hopefully you guys, get behind that as well. We would appreciate the support for that too. I don't know what more to talk about for this week. I feel like we've kind of covered the majority of things. I'm seeing a couple of questions coming in, so I might just answer those real quick. Well, we'll probably wrap up there, to be honest, because I don't really think there's much more to talk about in terms of round 25. No one's got trades, no one's got players, so hopefully you just enjoy the last week, and hopefully if your team is in the top 8, you've got something to cheer for in the finals. If not, maybe you can look ahead to next season. Duangi says, should I rest any Storm players, Grant and Munster, because of the tight match? Personally, I don't feel like I'm going to do that. I think, I know they had a bit of a down week last week, but I think it's still a game where guys like Grant and Munster, they're big game players. So I kind of feel like any game that they can score well. So, I mean, if you've got a luxury of like being able to bench them for like a equal or if not better replacement, maybe. I just feel like most people's teams probably aren't equipped to bench guys like Grant or Munster. So I'm personally going to be playing the pair of them, just given the quality of the players. And yes, the matchup is tight, but I think, they're big game players and they can do well in any week. So I personally will just play them for this week. It's not really much more to talk about with my team. Probably the only thing I'll change is maybe Olukwatu out for Fafita, and then I'll reserve McInnes instead. Just because he's starting, I think he'll be a much safer score than Olukwatu. I need every point I can get if I want to chase top 1,000 this week. And then, Garrick for whatever centering I decide. One of Holmes or Ikevalu is what I'm thinking at the moment. We'll probably wrap up the stream there, to be honest. Give the stream a like on the way out if you did enjoy it. And again, really want to say a big thank you for everyone for tuning in for this season. Won't be the last time you hear from me. I'll obviously be active on Twitter. And hopefully you guys can get around that little poem ebook idea. I'll post maybe a couple of screenshots on Twitter, maybe tomorrow or Thursday, just to see what it looks like. And I'll post all the links and stuff for that sometime soon. So keep your eyes peeled on Twitter. Otherwise,